All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another Monday morning tech chat show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Monday morning tech chat show on a Tuesday. It's like eating breakfast for dinner. I'm so excited. I may or may not be wearing pants, but according to Twitch's terms of service, I have to be wearing pants. So I'm wearing pants. Everybody, thanks so much for joining joining the live stream. I booked a job yesterday and then also had a live broadcast. We're going to be covering that in some of the housekeeping yesterday. So I was not able to do our normal Monday show, but the Tech Chat show is an early in the week, almost always on a Monday, live stream podcast for SGGQA. The SGG stands for Some Gadget Guy. I am Some Gadget Guy. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, and the QA stands for Question and Answer because I like to make this an interactive discussion. I try to get as many of these comments read as I can, wherever you might be joining us. I'm already seeing some people pop in. Abraham Fabeeves, I don't know how to pronounce your Twitch handle. LFA is in the house. Scrumptious One on Periscope, and of course we're also streaming on we're live streaming on the Mixer if you watch on the Mixer, and then this will get uploaded to the YouTubes later. All right, and Andrew, Fat Produce, don't worry, Juan, I don't have my 11 a.m. meeting today. And Marie Domingo on Facebook. All right, we've got a pretty well-rounded collection of chat coming in from around the web. You can talk to each other, you can talk to me, and we're going to try and keep this show rolling. The Monday morning Tech Chat show is my favorite way to go over tech and news, stories that might have fallen through the cracks, stories that are continuing to develop. We talk a little tech and politics, we talk a little gadgets and reviews, and then hopefully also cover what's hot and what you guys want to talk about. LFA, currently stuck in traffic. Well, if you're stuck in traffic and you're live streaming this safely, LFA, then thank you for joining the show. LFA Reviews is one of my favorite YouTube channels for audio kit. I'm definitely an audio gearhead. I consider myself an audio snob. So if you dig on a really nuanced and grounded conversation about things like headphones and earbuds and how you listen and how you consume your music, you should absolutely give LFA a follow. Subscribe to his channel on YouTube. And LFA, at the end of this, after I sort of wrap up the show and I tease what's coming up next, I've got some kit that you would definitely be interested in knowing more about. So I don't know if you'll be able to make it for the whole show, but at the end of the show, at some point, try and check back in. Cool stuff. Sean Diggs Tech. LFA is amazing. Highly recommend his channel. Actually, you know what? The other thing that I'll say for LFA is not just that he puts out good he puts out good audio and headphone reviews. He single-handedly got me back into reviewing truly wireless earbuds because I thought they were all garbage. You should also just give him a follow like on the socials because he's a really straight up he's a kind and considerate dude, and he's so supportive of this era of online content creators. I did a creator chat with him. We had like a 2-hour conversation about what goes into how we review audio kit. He was just so gracious, and he was such a great host to have on my podcast. So yeah, definitely give him a follow. From Fabies, gosh, I'm so excited about Ryzen 3rd and graphics cards finally arriving. I am silly excited about AMD making it back to the big show. We're definitely going to be talking about that. We've got topics on Bitcoin. There's a new generation of deep fakes that are hitting the web right now for entertainment purposes, but that's super scary stuff. We've got HTC to talk about. I'm just excited whenever we get to bring back like HTC. It's just good times. So let's jump into some housekeeping. I'm gonna take a sip of water here real quick. I unfortunately will be probably pausing to sip water because I've already done a tremendous amount of talking the end of last week into this week. Jumping into housekeeping, I've got to highlight this. This was a lovely conversation that I got to have with Mikkel Casanova for his podcast, the #1 rated podcast in Hawaii. And we had about a 2-hour yeah, it says right there on the YouTube. Good job, Juan. I can read the numbers. About a 2-hour conversation on YouTube, just talking about technology, getting into the content creator space. These are topics that I think are very present right now. And Mikkel is a great host. I maybe rambled a bit talking about my philosophy, but that shouldn't come as any great surprise because I ramble quite a bit. But he had a lot of questions to ask about things like YouTube and algorithms and sort of the popularity metrics. And he's recently been covering some of his own content for things like E3. He made it out here to LA for E3, and just a really cool dude. I would definitely scope out his podcast if you're wanting to kind of supplement, fill out that roster of fun podcasts and something that's a bit more homegrown. But he's starting to have he's starting to find that footing. He's starting to get some really great guests. I mean, not just me. But I mean, like, I had to follow Isaiah Washington in a pretty deep and heavy conversation about sort of like politics and Hollywood and sort of his background and his perspective on stuff. You know, like his follow up was me. So I kind of felt bad for him. I'm not as big a draw as Isaiah Washington. But yeah, so that was a lot of fun. The other major podcast news and another reason why my voice is still a little raw is I finally pinned down Trisha Hirschberger, one of my dearest and closest friends here in Los Angeles, for a creator chat. So creator chat, it's also on the same podcast channel. I kind of just put everything on the same RSS feed. But creator chat is also my ability to use my platform to talk about the issues that are facing some of your favorite online creators. And so Trisha has a lot to share. She came up very similar to me. We started producing kind of around the same time. We were both YouTube junkies, early days of YouTube monetization, doing really, really well on that platform, and then had sort of challenges as YouTube started changing things and ad metrics. And she is an amazing example of diversifying tech. She's a host on a number of other podcasts and live streams, and super into gaming and tech, which is always funny. Like some of her stories about, you know, like she would go to audition for like a hosted show, and they'd be like, "Well, you can't be into gaming. You don't have purple hair." And she'd get really pissed off about that. From LFA, Trisha seems like such a sweetheart. She is awesome. She is like legit gamer cred. She knows her shit when it comes to tech. She used to be a regional product rep for Samsung, so she used to go and train salespeople on how to position Samsung corporate products. So she's super savvy. And then also when you get her off camera, she's just swearing like a filthy sailor. So she's hilarious. Every day that I get to spend on set with Trisha is a very happy day because we work very well together. And she's one of the few that I've co-hosted with that I've ever had the feeling like, oh, I can kind of play this like jazz. She totally has my back. When I go off on a tangent, she's really good about reining me back in. I'm really good at reading her. So like if there's like a dropout or if there's something that she needs some help with, like I'm there. It's really rare that you find someone that you vibe with that well. And just she's a close friend of the family. She's married to one of my best friends from college. And our relationships are kind of like gender swaps. You know, we're both married to sort of production-minded, stage manager style, type A analytical personalities. And we're both the sort of fly by the seat of our pants, where angels fear to tread kinds of individuals. And our relationships are hilarious. Like, we pair up and you're like, my wife and her husband are kind of sitting down and talking about like calendars, and Trisha and I are like, oh my God, did you beat Cuphead finally? And then we have a good laugh. So, from Fabi's, a production marriage, sort of like a production sibling rivalry. It's funny because again, Trisha and I would say Trisha and I feel like we're so similar that we couldn't even be like work married. Like we'd kill each other in the best way possible because we hang out and we do so well. Anyway, irrelevant. Short story, incredibly long. That creator chat was a really fun conversation, and it was way too long. In the making. Like, this is something we started talking about at the beginning of the year, and she just works a crazy schedule. I've got a list of links on that creator chat page, and I'll have all of the show links and the these housekeeping links on SomeGadgetGuy.com and in the show notes for this episode. But it's hold on, let me just go back. Let me go back through this real quick. So if you want to follow Trisha, I don't even have all of it, but you can follow her on Twitter, on Twitch, on YouTube. She co-hosts with me on Newegg. She produces a show called Game Engine. She's on Instagram, obviously. She just booked she is the host of The Dungeon Rundown, which is a D&D podcast follow-up to the actual D&D show. She does Kingston DIY in 5, and she's recently started working on another project too, and now I can't remember what it is. So that would be about half of Trisha's current catalogs of products to follow her on. Now, just wrapping up housekeeping here real quick. Last week, I finally got my review out on these bad boys. These are the CCA C16 earbuds. 8 drivers per ear, says the big obnoxious exclamation point on the thumbnail for this. Someone rightfully called me out because I was just working really fast on doing macro photography, but I totally plugged the cables into the wrong sides after I was shooting my close-up shots of the cables detached. So everyone should make fun of the fact that I have the red ring on the left channel. Everyone remember, when you replace your earbud cables, red means right. But that review is finally out. It's a very complicated set of feels for how I used, enjoyed, and then also had to critique that product. There's something happening in the world of earbuds. We're getting these amazing lower cost entries, and we're starting to get triple driver, quad driver, 5 driver. I mean, I recently reviewed 5 drivers per ear for $40. So, as you can imagine, when you're throwing out all these buzzwords, drivers and dynamic drivers and balanced armatures and earbuds and high fidelity and audiophile, it can get pretty easy to get lost. And so each review, I kind of have to break down, like, this is the difference between a balanced arm and this is the difference between a balanced arm and a dynamic driver, pros and cons. But some of these manufacturers going off on these crazy hardware experiments, tuning becomes a very big deal. And I still don't truly believe that just quantity can always beat quality. So that review was sort of a complicated feel. Like, there's this amazing accomplishment that for $150, this manufacturer has packed stupid amounts of hardware into an earbud. But then also there's the practical consideration of what are you getting when you spend $150 on some earbuds. Last bits of housekeeping. I've got a lot of housekeeping to get through. It was a busy week last week, and I've got a killer week this week. And we finally had our sit-down exchange, me and TK Bay, for the Cheap Phone Challenge. I'm really excited about what we're going to do here. This is TK's reactions to getting my phone. We had a challenge where we were each going to spend about $75 and then get a phone for the other participant. So TK bought me a phone, I bought TK a phone, and then I think at the end of this showdown, so long as these phones are actually still functional, we're going to do an exchange. From Gary the Fireman, yeah, the back falling off of TK's phone was shocking. So maybe my phone might have been a bit too cheap. So where is it? I've got it over here on the table. TK got me the T-Mobile Revel, built by TCL. I think I am coming out ahead. One, I got TK the more ridiculous phone, and TK got me the more practical phone. I'm not feeling hamstrung at all. I am a big fan of TCL's, especially TCL's in-house brands, like Alcatel. The Idol series phones were awesome. And this is basically an Idol, but with the power button in the right place. So, stereo speakers, a recent build of Android, an acceptable mid-ranger chipset. Like, this is still a perfectly functional phone today. So once we go through actually using these phones for a bit, it's the perfect time. We're in the doldrums of summer. There are no big exciting announcements or launches happening right now. So this is the right time to spend some time looking back, play around with some other options, and do some of the more fun videos that we've got on our channels. And I think we're going to start doing some commentary and some videos out this week. And then I think next week we'll have sort of a wrap up. How did the experiment go? And we'll host some giveaways. This might not be the most exciting phone, but this is still a perfectly functional device that someone could really use, as opposed to it just taking up space on a bookshelf. Abraham AM, you put TK in torture. Kiwi Mad Dog 420, I think TK got more. Sorry, I think TK got more or less than he bargained for. I got TK the prettier phone, but it's probably not the more functional phone. And then one last little bit. Oh, sorry, two more last little bits of housekeeping. Trying to get through these as fast as I can. This was a review that really hit home for me. It's a talking point that I feel does not get the attention it really deserves. We're in a climate of where consumers are becoming more concerned about technology across the spectrum. We're concerned about privacy. We're concerned about screen time. We're starting to understand the science and optics on VR, so that there are advisories against putting kids in VR helmets for too long. We have all of these things that we can pay attention to, and we only have so much range. We only have so much of a gauge for what else should we be concerned about? What else should we be afraid of? I think we're all at capacity for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But that being said, I don't feel there's been enough discussion on the topic of hearing health and hearing loss. I'm going to keep bringing this back up. Rates of hearing loss have been on the rise for the last 10 years. Correlation does not equal causation, but these trends map really well against the adoption of smartphones and of being able to listen to constant sound through low-quality earbuds. From the rise of the iPod through the rise of the iPhone, we see these rates of hearing loss, especially hearing loss in kids and young adults, substantially skyrocket. Where now there are many clinicians who are starting to encounter people in their 20s and 30s who really would benefit from some kind of medical hearing assistance. So I spent some time with a product that claims to aid in that window. You don't really need a hearing aid, but you do need some help. So I kind of resemble that. I'm in my late 30s, and I suffer from what's called hidden hearing loss. My ears do phenomenally well in a controlled space, in a quiet sort of clinician's office. I score very, very well there on hearing tests. My frequency range is above average, and my attention to granular details is very, very high. And I can feel out sound better than your average almost 40-year-old. But then you get me in a busy cafe and I can't hear anything. And it's been this way for a couple years, where the majority of my conversations in loud, echoey environments is basically me lip reading and get just enough audio sensory information to follow what you're saying by reading your lips. And it looks super awkward because I'm staring at your mouth. I'm not making eye contact. So a company, New Hera, reached out to me after I produced a sit-down interview. I recorded an interview with one of the top audiologists in the country to talk about some of this and to help kind of explain what this... It's sort of a new classification of hearing loss. This is something that you were either like able to hear or you weren't. Now we're starting to find that there's actually this finer disconnect, and they're starting to understand what's damaged in the ear to produce this kind of effect. And so New Hera reached out to me. They have two products. I got to review the slightly more expensive one, but these are the New Hera IQ Buds Boost. So the Boost is the more expensive product. These are true wireless earbuds. They look like any other, sort of in-ear wireless earbud, but they use very similar microphone modeling techniques that you would have for high-end headphones to enable noise reduction in real time, but to boost human speech. So it's not just one of those gimmicky, as seen on TVs, super ear. You have like a microphone pack that just blows out your ears because you just point it at what you want to listen to. It's different than what you can do on AirPods, where you can use your iPhone as a microphone. These have dual stage microphones built in, and they sample the audio around you. And then you can also preset, am I on an airplane? Am I in a restaurant? Am I walking around traffic? And it does a reasonably good job of pulling the world down, but then helping to elevate human speech. Human speech is going to sound a little AM radio degraded, because anytime you mess with frequencies of sound, you're kind of cutting into those same frequencies where the human voice lives. But I was very surprised at how well these worked. New Hera has 2 models. I did not mention this in the review. This is the big thing I missed in my review. I reviewed the IQ Buds Boost, which have a whole bunch of plugins and smartphone software, and you can do this hearing test, which tries to model some of your playback so that it's stuff is clearer, and that costs $4.99. If you just want the basic microphone noise reduction tools, they have a simplified version for $250, and I should have mentioned that in the review. From Fab Eves. Sorry, Fab Eves, I don't know if you want to tell me how I'm supposed to pronounce your Twitch handle, but Fab Eves says, we should pay more attention on hearing topics. It's our health. I'm waging these fights, and I'm trying to focus on parents. Hearing health, hearing damage really never is corrected. When you hurt your ears, they never really fully heal. And for folks out there who's like, oh, well, I already have a ringing in my ears, or I'm already sort of deaf, like your hearing can always get worse until you are so deaf that you can't hear anything. It's always worth trying to hold on to and trying to maintain what you do have. So even if you feel like, my hearing's crap anyway, that doesn't mean you throw away what you have left. There's still something there worth saving. And especially as medical science starts catching up to maybe more restorative or recuperative treatments, those are still probably a decade or more away, but it's still worth protecting your hearing. And so, even when we go to a movie theater, I bring headphones for my daughter just to act as earmuffs. And I put them on her little skull, and she already has a pretty good instinct for loud noise. I'll cover my ears. And we start acting like that's a silly thing, but we should maintain that, that those are good habits. A fire engine rolls right by your cafe table. Cover your ears. That's okay. You don't need to tough out a shock of loud sound to your ears. From Goran Petrovic, noise reduction is so underrated. I hate noise more than anything. It's distracting. It's constant bombardment on your eardrum. Just so many things that we need to do to walk this back. And the mainstream solutions do a pretty poor job of handling this. The earbuds that come with an iPhone or with a Huawei or those open ear earbuds, those are terrible for you. Those are really bad. They encourage exactly the habits that burn your ears out. AirPods, same thing. You can spend a lot of money for the convenience of earbuds that you can't even control the volume of what you're listening to on the earbud. But if you want to listen in a gym or in a busy environment, your only solution is to turn them up so loud that they block out sound around you. That's terrible for your ears. It sets a terrible habit. It encourages a terrible habit of how you should listen. So that increasingly, I am becoming a zealot for healthier hearing, for preventing hearing loss when you can, and maintaining the level of hearing that you currently have. Gary the fireman, especially if I'm in the officer seat of the fire engine. Gary the fireman, that handle, his Twitch and Twitter name, that's not like a metaphor or some kind of euphemism. Gary the fireman. So actually, Gary, I would absolutely be interested in knowing, like, what do police officers have to sit right under a siren, in their patrol cars. Firefighters have to sit on, you're driving this crazy loud, big, heavy piece of machinery. You're packed in there and sirens are going off. Like, I would imagine hearing would be a very vital tool in communicating with your team members. How how do you prevent blowing out your ears when you're on the job? We have these things like OSHA certifications and protections. If you're in construction, like, we now protect your hearing for that. Yet here we are, like, giving kids 24/7, 365 access to audio kit that never burns out. You can listen all day, every day. You can bombard the eardrum with sound constantly. There are developmental issues for that too, but I'll save that for another conversation. Oh, and Gary the Fireman, some departments offer headsets. See, I mean, that to me would be a significant concern. Obviously, not the most dangerous aspect of being a firefighter. I'm not saying that's at the top of the list for your chosen profession, but it would be something that I think deserves to be on the list somewhere. From Doomer, I only use open earphones that came with my phone. Sorry. Let me reread that. I only use open earphones that came with my phone only for video and stream consumption. So it's not that an open earphone should never be utilized. Where these manufacturers are being negligent is helping to arm the consumer with good information for how they should be used. So on my YouTube channel, I have another video that I purposely shot in portrait mode so it kind of looked like where you would find the settings on the iPhone. As much as the actual products frustrate the crap out of me, I have to give Apple props that they really do have a volume limiter native to the core of the operating system of the iPhone. Some Android manufacturers have similar solutions, ways that you can prevent turning up the phone too loud, or those nagging volume warnings. Oh, turning up the volume too loud will be bad for your ears, but then you just click past it and you can still turn it all the way up. On the iPhone, there is a setting where you can set a hard limit. So in the video, I break this down in more detail, but the basic takeaway is go to a quiet room. Use those open earbuds in a very quiet, a very sterile environment, and set the volume where they're just before they get uncomfortable to listen to something that you're very familiar with, a song that you know really well. And that's your limit. And I think most people would be shocked when you turn up the phone to that limit and then you go walk around traffic, you can't hear it. But that is the limit of the audio that was uncomfortable when you were in a quiet place. You would still be doing damage in a busy environment were you to listen past that. So if there's any opportunity to swap out open earbuds with something else, if you are one of those people who can fit inner aural earbuds that go in the ear canal, or you can just switch over to some cans that closed back cans that help block more of the world around you, I highly recommend it because it allows you to listen at the same quality with a lower volume, with less impact on the eardrum. From Elisna, Sony has been doing it for years. Sony is an excellent name in this space. Not only for noise reduction, I really like the companies that have legit recording studio history. Sony microphones and Sony studio headphones, top notch. You'll still see Sony cans in every single recording studio. I used to use a pair of AKGs, Bear Dynamic, Audio Technica, Sennheiser. I'm totally a whore for Sennheiser. All of these brands made products for people before the smartphone revolution. They made products for people who would have their ears in headphones or earbuds and monitors in their ears all day, every day. Sure, in-ear monitors. Another excellent name in this space. That's a consistent track record and a proven history of making the healthiest products possible. So now we're finding more companies that are playing in this space. Nuheara, that review meant a lot to me. I suffer from hidden hearing loss. I popped these IQ buds into my skull. I took my wife out on a lunch date to this really clacky, noisy, glass-walled, reflective cafe. And for the first time in a long time, I was having a conversation with my wife where I could hear her, and I wasn't just reading her lips. So I think that's kind of special. I think there are a lot of people kind of like me who probably haven't heard this stuff for real for a long time. Oh, Chatty Boy. Sorry I'm late. Chatty Boy, you're good. Did Juan just say he's a whore? I didn't say I was a whore. I said I was a Sennheiser whore. I flippin' love that company. Kiwi Mad Dog 420. I'm rarely away from low droning noises at the office. It's the HVAC. At home, it's the pedestal fan. It's like living in a tropical climate for you. I mean, again, and that's tough because, like, you want to give your ears a break from noise, but then you also want to give your ears a break from being covered. One last little bit of housekeeping. I know so we were doing so well, but I got on the topic of hearing health, and I could do hours of conversation and discussion just on that. So thank you for following me on that. I do have one last little bit. We are in the last week of a contest. The folks at Huawei reached out to me. I really liked spending some time with the little MediaPad M5 Lite. Great budget tablet, comes with a stylus in the box, and apparently the PR folks at Huawei had one lying around, so they sent one over for me. So we're going to give this away. If you want this tablet, on SomeGadgetGuy.com, there's the Huawei MediaPad M5 Lite Summer Sweepstakes. So if you go to SomeGadgetGuy.com, just right at the top, that little banner above Support Some Gadget Guy, there's Contest. I don't know that I could have made it easier for you to find the contest, but it's going to wrap up on Friday. You can get your entries in, and then I'll announce the winner next Monday on the podcast. Unfortunately, it is USA only, but if this one goes well, I'm hoping to do another Resurrect My Birthday giveaway. Giveaways are kind of thankless. I've been getting a lot of angry, cranky people who seem to think like I need to make everything international when I haven't done a contest in a while. I think the last one I did with TK. We gave away a OnePlus. It's a lot of work, and increasingly, the tools that we use to manage our contests are starting to get cracked down on over at YouTube. So, I did a video just announcing this contest on YouTube, and I wasn't really allowed to put links to the contest because that's now against the community terms of service on YouTube. People are starting to get community warnings for things like hosting contests. So it turns into a bit more of a scavenger hunt. Go find my website and click on that banner. It's annoying. So the fact that contests are getting harder to host and that I have to deal with the grief of contest junkies who never participate on my channel but feel like I need to give them things for free probably minimizes the number of giveaways that I'm hosting. But I'm thinking for my birthday, I might try and dig up something big. Like, I might try and give away a nice phone. But if I do, the contest will not be easy. And I'm thinking it's going to be like a deep dive. Okay, let me just tell you, if you guys want to start trying to hunt this stuff down, I'll let you know here on the podcast. If I can pull off what I want to give away, what I want to do is try and set up a deep scavenger hunt on the videos that I produced for my channel, and then also what I used to the videos that I worked on for Pocket Now. I actually buried a tiny ARG, alternate reality game, into a lot of those videos. Sometimes you would hear these little Morse code chirps. Sometimes you would hear these strange little bits of static, and those were all clues that you could search for to find a special email address that then you could contact. And I actually gave away, while I was at Pocket Now, I gave away 2 phones that I never announced. It was all buried deep in those reviews, in these little snippets of clues. And so I kind of want to get back to something like that. I'm not a big fan of subscribe to my YouTube and follow me on Twitter. I mean, this is the way I hosted this contest with Huawei. They wanted to do sort of a social media drive. I was totally willing to play with them on that. But when I do a giveaway and it's my money that paid for the product that I'm giving away, I like rewarding the people that have actually been participating on my channel. So I can't just outright, lock off the contest to only people who have been following me up to this date. That's kind of against the law. But I've been doing things like hiding these audio clues or hiding these visual clues, or maybe there's a weird QR code on a phone that takes you to a freaky video that's unlisted. So I think what I might do is try and resurrect some of that. Or even just like, hey, if you can find one of the videos from my failed ARG, the first person who can will win a really nice phone, probably around $700, something like that. Maybe a OnePlus. The last phone I gave away was a OnePlus. Maybe I'll give away another OnePlus. So from Kiwi Mad Dog 420, hashtag SomeGadgetGuy from LFA Reviews. I prefer to do secret giveaways myself. Only the winner knows about the giveaway. Then the contest junkies have nothing to complain about. Yes, because contest junkies are obnoxious and we hate them. I don't like how people flock in to like spam a channel like crazy, and it's extra noise. And then they all just leave when they don't win something, but they're the angriest and the loudest and the most obnoxious. And then we get back to just our normal community of fun, cool conversations. So that's housekeeping. Housekeeping took 40 minutes. Hold on, let me drink some water. Oh, man. So, lots of stuff going on. Let's jump into some news. I always front load with politics, and if there's a story on the FCC, pretty good chance I'm going to cover it. I am continuously not surprised, but also disappointed by the level of management from the FCC, the agency most responsible for regulating what goes on the internet, or at least should be the agency most responsible for regulating what goes on the internet. Very derelict in any kind of duty to protect consumers. So, increasingly, I've been becoming a fan of Elizabeth Warren. I very much appreciate a conversation where she's not really interested in blowing the system up, but she is trying to find some aggressive ways, shall we say, to potentially correct some of the more recent missteps and try and get us back on a track that seems more reasonable. She's one of the only Democrats that has been tackling tech topics. I feel that is very important. Whether or not you agree with her completely or you think you would vote for her in a primary, more of our elected officials need to be taking tech seriously, and our mainstream media does a horrible job of covering the nuance of things like net neutrality, municipal broadband, 5G. If it's techie, then it's one of those geeky things, and consumers don't like geeky things. So the only time we hear about this stuff is when John Oliver does a segment, and a million people go and hit the FCC website, and then it just disappears again while these people sort of take away things that we should have as basic consumer protections. Short story long. This is coming from CNET, written up by Corinne Reichert. I think it's Reichert. Elizabeth Warren accuses advisory panel for FCC of corruption. From the article, a panel that provides policy advice to the Federal Communications Commission is stacked with corporate insiders. Democratic presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren said Monday. She cited a blog post by the Project on Government Oversight, POGO, which showed more than half of all of the Communication Security, Reliability, and Interoperability Council members are direct employees of private companies or of industry trade groups. Those words were all of my favorite words for making me sound like Tom Brokaw. Interoperability Kuala Lumpur. Sorry. Back to the article for just a second here. This could lead to allegations that rather than working for American consumers, the FCC is working for, quote, giant telecom companies. This is a direct quote from Warren. This is the definition of corruption. Industry members writing the rules to benefit themselves and their rich friends. She added in another tweet, Senator Warren has called on FCC Chair Ajit Pai to, quote, explain the extent to which CSRIC may be corrupted by corporate influence. And then CNET actually has a breakdown. 49% of the members of this advisory group are working private sector. 19% are in industry-related groups, and then we have civil and society, academia, and government. So the last 30% still might be taking funds from the very industry that they're supposed to be regulating. And so there was another story. I was actually going to cover it last week. I didn't feel very well read on it, but there was one of these members from CSRIC, CSRIC, was just busted in Alaska for some pretty corrupt influence over the industry that she was advising on. And again, this was like an advisor to Ajit Pai. And you're like, see, we're kind of surrounding these people, these individuals, with members of the industry that I don't feel like the American public gets to have the same seat at the table to help influence policy. So I feel like something is a little imbalanced there. Something is a little wrong. Again, I don't feel that this is I know talking about Elizabeth Warren in this current age right now, we're in the sort of the Democratic primary season. The stories around politics are getting ridiculous and exhausting. There are so many other things that, again, technology probably shouldn't be top of your list for driving political reason to get you out to vote. But it should be on the list. And this is something that I think most of our elected officials, liberal and conservative, have done a miserable job of properly addressing. So it makes me excited when there's someone on the main stage. She's at in the big spotlight for this Democratic primary season to talk about it. This is a huge industry. Millions of dollars of lobbying are thrown at our federal elected officials and our state and local officials, all to prevent competition, to make our prices more expensive, to not deliver improved service, to get sweetheart deals for zoning, to get tax dollars. They're currently lobbying, again, they can't build out 5G unless they get more tax dollars. So we need to publicly fund all of their network improvements, but they get to keep all the profits. That's the only way that this can work. So if you're a conservative, that's not capitalism. That's corporate socialism. So this isn't a liberal or a conservative. This shouldn't be a liberal or a conservative topic. If you're right-leaning, we will always disagree on what the final outcome for policing this should resemble. But we probably don't disagree that there's a problem here. And so if our elected officials don't even talk about it and can't even agree that there's a problem, they are not in step with the American public, where 80% of polled United States citizens think that there should be some kind of protection for things like net neutrality. There should be more competition for state and municipal broadband. We should be seeing some better regulation over the companies that are rolling out 5G very aggressively. We'll disagree on what the outcomes should be, but right now, our elected officials aren't even acknowledging that there are problems here. So that's a problem. From Alisna, so sad, the corrupt have already stacked the deck. Yeah, but this is an opportunity. Again, as we get into primary season, as we get into sort of the main race, after we select a Democrat presidential candidate, this is also an opportunity to start getting some new blood into Congress, into the Senate, into the House. If you're a conservative, this is an opportunity to really start voting for your ideals. If you're small government, maybe you're checking out libertarians, trying to get them higher up the chain. If you're finding people that talk the talk but don't walk the walk, we've got to start getting rid of them. I'm unfortunately in Brad Sherman's district here in California, so he's a Democrat. But if another Democrat were to primary him, I would vote against him in a heartbeat. He is only marginally better than the kind of California Republicans that we'll get. Not much, though. And one of our next stories is something that hits him. Brad Sherman gets a lot of money from like the banking and credit card industry for his campaigns. So wouldn't you know it, Brad Sherman is super against cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies might be used in crimes. We've got to get rid of cryptocurrencies. Criminals might use cryptocurrencies. Like criminals don't use cash. Uh-oh, a criminal was found with cash. Better get rid of money. David Ray, socialistic tendencies are only bad if they don't benefit them. Weird. Oh, Fat Produce from my buddy Andrew. Did you see that a female former Marine jet pilot is running against Mitch McConnell in Kentucky? That would be an exciting race. Mitch McConnell is terrible and dumb, and I hate him. Again, Mitch McConnell is sort of the weaponized version of what we've been dealing with since the Nixon administration, where every generation of GOP federal elected representative has basically just doubled down on obstruction. And I think it really got bad starting with Newt Gingrich. There was that old school mentality of politicians in D.C. having a couple drinks and being able to hammer out some legislation, and everyone left the table angry because that's what compromise was. And then somewhere around Newt Gingrich, it just became, no, I don't want it. Can't make me. And that's not governing. Mitch McConnell has completely abdicated his responsibilities as in the Senate. The Senate is not an arm of government to validate the president. It's a co-equal branch of government that sometimes agrees with the president and sometimes is a check against presidential powers. So Mitch McConnell is derelict of his duties in the Senate and should be removed. Like, there should be an impeachment process for senators. Abraham A.M., politicians clutching their pearls. Oh. Kiwi Mad Dog 420, cryptocurrency was crime. Thank you for writing that out with the W's for me to properly do my baby speak, because this is actually one of the next interesting stories. Damn it, I don't actually have a link for the story, but you can go to, if you look up current price of Bitcoin, Bitcoin has been on the rise again, and I believe it's currently cresting 12,000. You know what? I'm going to pull it up right now. Current value of Bitcoin. And here, let me go back into screen share. So one Bitcoin, $12,581.83. So do want to be careful that as we look at these last couple days, we have seen some volatility. Where is it? Here, it climbed as high 12.2, then dropped to 10.5, and now it's back up 11.7, and then now the current pricing 12.5 again. So we're talking $1,000 valuation swings in Bitcoin, but from its low back in January at 30, where did it drop to? 3,400. I think the lowest point it hit was 3,400. That was in February. So February 1st was 3,400. From February to July, it's just more than tripled, almost quadrupled in value again. So I still don't believe that the killer app for blockchain will always be banking and financial. But this roller coaster ride of cryptocurrencies, valuations, and what value we ascribe to this has been really interesting to watch. So, of course, with crypto climbing back up again, and I think there will be another ebb and flow, right? I think it's maybe not the best play to start buying Bitcoin when it's trading over 10,000. Those price fluctuations can drop suddenly, come back up, unless you're looking at sort of a longer term trend. I am not qualified to be giving investment advice. And I think I have like 0.005 of a Bitcoin in a wallet somewhere. I was playing around with different configurations for trying to like join a group to mine, and my computer was just not very efficient at the time, but I still have the wallet somewhere, so I can buy a pack of gum with my Bitcoin. So the other important thing to bring back up, whenever these prices start to climb, we see people that start getting back into building mining hardware. crypto, blockchain, and all of these buzz terms surrounding it, which I have sort of a functional understanding of, but I'm definitely not an expert. It becomes such a speculation race. I seriously doubt we're going to get to the place where we were 2 years ago, where crypto was so hot that it was severely disrupting the graphics card market. And people were building these crazy boxes for mining based off of consumer GPUs. You just couldn't get your hands on NVIDIA. You couldn't get your hands on AMD Vega. This stuff was just evaporating, and it caused this huge inflation in graphics card pricing because, supply and demand. And then that cratered, and NVIDIA took a bad beat on leftover inventory with GTX cards. I'm hoping we've learned our lesson there. We're not rushing to replicate that same issue. But as a proof of concept, there are some interesting things still happening with blockchain that I hope we can expand into other areas and evolve what it is that we're doing with this type of verification process. How you verify a transaction and how you mine this currency could also be applied to other applications on the internet, and even down to things like content distribution could have a blockchain component. We could decentralize certain applications or certain web solutions in a way that I thought maybe we would have some kind of like BitTorrent style web 2.0. But maybe we could build that on blockchain, So there are some very critical ideas that I think need to be examined outside of the world of currency, because right now the hard spotlight is always going to be on money, and the people who like to control money also like to get in the way of the technological innovations that could then hopefully proliferate into other industry. So one of the things that absolutely needs to be addressed, if we're going to make another internet on a peer-to-peer or on some type of blockchain verified process, would be power consumption. Because the current way that Bitcoin is produced and monetized and traded and mined is not very efficient. So for this amazing banking revolution of volatile pricing, Bitcoin's energy consumption equals that of Switzerland. So even with Bitcoin mining not the big hot fad that it was a couple years ago. Oh, sorry, this is from BBC News, written up by Chris Baraniuk. Baraniuk. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. Bitcoin uses as much energy as the whole of Switzerland, a new online tool from the University of Cambridge shows. Tool makes it easier to see how cryptocurrency networks' energy usage compares with other entities. However, one expert argued that it was the cryptocurrency's carbon footprint that really mattered. Currently, the tool estimates that Bitcoin is using around 7 gigawatts of electricity, equal to 0.21% of the world's supply. That is a lot of power. That is as much power as would be generated by 7 Dungeness nuclear power plants at once. Over the course of a year, this equates to roughly the same power consumption as Switzerland. That's a lot of power. Now, I would hope that we're looking at energy markets where maybe more sustainable electricity is being utilized, but considering how decentralized and where a lot of people are still getting their power from things like coal fire plants, that there's probably a substantial amount of carbon being produced just on the power necessary to continue Bitcoin. I was hoping that we would start seeing. I was hoping by now that we would have started to see improved mechanisms for mining and verifying blockchain. I know Ethereum is, I don't know, someone correct me. I thought Ethereum was still in their proof of stake transition. So instead of the traditional way that you mine, there's a different way that you can verify transactions through Ethereum, which should be less energy intensive. It didn't seem to me like we had made that transition yet. And then also, instead of the sort of server side building PC style Bitcoin mining hardware, there was also a trend in building ASICs. So these more focused boxes to mine and verify this data. So instead of having a big computer which runs an operating system and has all of these other computer components, you build a smaller, leaner box which is hard focused for this one activity and this one verification. So those have been becoming more popular, and you can look up crypto ASICs, and you'll find people that are making these boxes. But it doesn't seem to me that the majority of this decentralized, general consumers aren't running an extra mini computer just to keep up with their Bitcoin. It's usually the downtime, kind of like folding at home. I'm not using my PlayStation 3. I'll let it go and verify some scientific number crunching when I'm not using my PS3. And I'm happy to, donate my electricity costs to a worthy cause. It seems like crypto and Bitcoin is still in that, well, I'm not using my PC right now, and I have a pretty good gaming PC, so maybe it can earn me a little extra cash on the side, and it probably won't even offset my electricity costs, but then I'll have this Bitcoin in my wallet. That's going to cost us a lot of power. And I know there have been a number of states here in the United States where companies try to roll into like a warehouse and dump a bunch of computers because energy costs are real low. Or it was in Washington State, I believe, the beginning of the year, where they were putting a hard cap on any new crypto. So if you had an official business, they were not allowing companies to roll in and start utilizing their sort of hydropower. I think it was hydroelectric power. So for residents, energy costs were dirt cheap, so these companies would roll in and then just start completely obliterating the amount of energy usage that the actual residents of that area were consuming for power. And then they'd start complaining, oh, well, you promised us cheap energy. We promised you nothing. Get out. From Abraham Artemis. Crypto mining with nuclear power. It's only 3.6 ront in gen. Not great, but not terrible. At least we got one coin. With my terrible faux Eastern European accent. Just imagine if you could have mined all of your crypto in one burst of activity at 3 Mile Island. Okay, so Bitcoin, energy consumption, kind of scary. Another thing that's super scary. Let's stay on the scary train. Not only on the scary train because it's a scary thing for society, but it's also taking a shot at a scary movie. Deepfakes. It's been really exciting seeing the community of online. So I was checking out Corridor Cast. They do a whole bunch of videos talking about post-production. They've got this great series of They've got this great series of videos, graphic artists react to terrible computer graphics in movies. And they've also been starting to look at things like the deep fakes for... they're starting to look at things like using a deceased actor in a movie. So they actually have a video, when an actor passed, but they passed away, but they still need to finish a film. So, they look at, there was an actor who died during the production of, what was that Russell Crowe film? Gladiator. And they had to kind of copy a couple shots from previous parts of the film. And it's super, super early days for basic digital manipulation. Some really interesting stuff. And now, of course, you get into things like, Star Wars. How do you make, Grand Moff Tarkin appear in this film? And, of course, there are things about it that just aren't right. Well, in this new world of deepfakes, it's not just computer animators trying to make lips and faces move. we're actually getting to it's a really easy transition of modeling all of the little facial tics from a live performer onto another face. And you don't need to do the same type of motion capture to achieve it. So I don't know if you saw this recently. Someone did a deep fake swapping Sylvester Stallone's face for Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2. There's a joke in Last Action Hero about Sylvester Stallone being the star, the Terminator in Terminator 2. And so someone did that as a swap. And it works well enough. There's a big signal, oh, this isn't right, because it's still Arnold Schwarzenegger's body and he's nude in the scene that they pick, the Terminator 2 sequence where he walks into the biker bar. But the face, and it's funny that Stallone's facial features aren't so dissimilar from Arnold Schwarzenegger's that a young face swap of Stallone works pretty well on a younger head of Arnold Schwarzenegger. So the one that just wigged me out, and so, yeah, the Stallone-Schwarzenegger face swap is pretty good. It wigs out. The scene where he puts on the sunglasses, the software that's modeling all of that sort of freaks out and his face gets really twitchy. It's pretty funny. The one that's wigging me out more from Abraham Artemis. Wait, this is no. From Kiwi Mad Dog 420. Da funk? Gary the Fireman, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. From Fat Produce, my gods. It's so good. It's so much. So look at young Carrie Fisher in Rogue One. Someone did a deep fake face swap on the CG model of young Carrie Fisher. And the CG face swap looks so much better. Because it is, I don't know exactly how Control-Shift-Face is doing their swap, but as the general, the general practice of this, using software to sort of replace, I'm trying not to do the face off from that terrible Nick Cage, John Travolta movie, but all of the little tics, how the face moves. Animators have a hard time, even with motion capture data, getting all of those little tics and movements. When you smile, other things kind of crinkle and move and your muscles change. Something might happen with your ears. It's that uncanny valley why a fully CG character or one of these sort of resurrected actors in a film never quite feels real. Something is always cluing in our brains that's not real. And it can make us feel very uncomfortable the closer it gets to real. But that is doing such a better job of handling all of the little twitches and reactions. And it's being applied directly to the real body and model, the real captured footage of a performer. I would not be surprised in my lifetime if someone reached out to the estate of a famous actor and said, hey, we want a deceased actor to star in our new movie. And they could just put them in there. Like, maybe we really do want Cary Grant to star in a modern day film. I would love to see the strapping traditional manhood of Gregory Peck in a modern day drama. And we could do that. And that is so ghastly and freaky. But of course, while this is something we're going to have to contend with in terms of entertainment, this is horrifically freaky in terms of the dissemination of information and how easy it is to trick people into consuming bad data, where we can very easily manipulate someone's likeness into doing or saying something that they absolutely never did. We're proper screwed. From Doomer. With great power comes great responsibility. Kiwi Mad Dog 420. That's it. AI has done us in. They won. Abraham Artemis. Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. God damn it, Jeff Goldblum. Sean Diggs Tech. Am I the only cynic here thinking, my God, if this would ever fall into the wrong hands immediately? Yeah. No, that's what we're all thinking, Sean Diggs Tech. We're all freaked out about this. We've already seen how easy it is to proliferate bad video. What was it? The Nancy Pelosi video that was obviously edited, but then streamed like wildfire through Facebook. And Facebook had like no issues leaving it up. They didn't really feel any burning need to take it down. And that's the dissemination of bad information. I'm not the biggest fan of Nancy Pelosi, but that doesn't mean that we should cut up her videos, take her out of context, and then misrepresent what she says, especially as an elected official. And so that wasn't even with this kind of like deepfake technology. That was with just bad video editing. And it made her look like she said something completely terrible. This stuff is going to get real bad. Real bad. So I'll have a link to this. But if you want to look it up, if you're just listening to this, The Shining starring Jim Carrey, episode 1 - concentration bracket deep fake. You can also look up Control-Shift-Face. Just so crazy, so freaky how good that is. I am very afraid. So, we're getting right around that we're just past the 1 hour mark. So I want to take just a little bit of a break here to talk about my passion project, the platform where I'm trying to help content creators. I've done a lot of talking over last week, and I'm going to be doing some more talking this week. Just how we can encourage healthier communities, building good relationships online, and then also diversifying the voices that we hear from in the tech space. I already gave my shout out, my plug. You should go follow LFA Reviews. He's a good dude. But I started this before I was the senior editor at Pocket Now, but it's something that I've really in earnest this year have been trying to take more seriously. And we're seeing those little bits of growth. We're seeing some comments, but it's a subreddit dedicated to helping smaller channels or established channels that you feel deserve more attention. This isn't the place to put up people who are already crazy search popular and already have millions of subscribers and are doing everything great. On Reddit, popularity also echo chambers. So someone who's crazy visible and super popular really doesn't need help sharing their content. But if you're a smaller content creator, let's say you just started reviewing Android phones. If you go and share your own reviews on an Android subreddit, you will be banned for self-promotion. You are not allowed to share your own content. So that means you're going to get people complaining about hearing the same stuff over and over again, but there's no good mechanism for discovery. So I created the subreddit glowing rectangles, reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles, as a place where someone can go and self-promote. It's a place where an audience or a fan can share content that they're passionate about or they're excited about. It's primarily for the tech space, but we have a couple other, I like to share, there's a person who does these really quirky, fun examinations of Star Trek ships. So, there's a little flexibility there, but mostly tech, geek, sci-fi, that kind of a platform. But our glowing rectangles. And so I just want to take a minute to, and Pat Costin is joining, and he's waving on Twitch. I want to take just a second, talk about some of the top stories that have been voted up on our glowing rectangles, getting back into a screen share here. This just makes me happy because I love collaborating with my friends. So TK's video, as we've started our cheap phone challenge, we met up for lunch. We're sitting outside this really nice little cafe. We're trading the phones. He's giving me the T-Mobile Revel. I gave him the X-Gotti. And then something hilarious and amazing happened as he started playing with the phone. So you should watch how he broke the phone that I bought for him. It was totally not me buying a hilarious Huawei clone. This is all on TK, totally manhandling, not treating it with respect, just completely abusing the device on camera. It made me so sad. I'm totally being facetious. He was a scholar and a gentleman. But that's the top story on our glowing rectangle. So you can follow on TK's channel, TK Bay on YouTube, but you can also check that out on our glowing rectangles. The next, is like a regular top voted producer on our glowing rectangles, someone who finally just broke 100,000 subscribers. It took way longer than it should have, but Gary Explains. This is another phenomenal tech channel you should absolutely be following if you want tech conversation more than beautiful cinematography. Gary is one of those deep dive dudes. You know when YouTube producers put out such and such explained, and you're like, I didn't need Bluetooth explained. That wasn't a complicated topic. My grandmother uses Bluetooth, but thanks for the explained video on something we all know about. When Gary does an explained video, he actually knows what he's talking about, and he's usually explaining something pretty advanced. So like RAM management on ARM chipset operating systems is a very different conversation than, like Wi-Fi explained. You'll never see that garbage from Gary. Gary also has been doing some of the most consistent benchmarking work. He's got his Speed Test G. And so the second top voted video on our glowing rectangles, Intro to Docker using a Raspberry Pi 4. Again, a deep dive examination on Docker and using a cutting-edge little Raspberry Pi 4, one of the newest examples of some small form factor computing hardware. Awesome. Great video. And the number 3 spot, tied for the number 3 spot. I don't know, some jerk did this review on the new Hira IQ Buds Boost. I don't know, he seems like kind of a blowhard. He probably rambles on a whole bunch too much, and he's talking about hearing health, whatever that means. But tied for third place is from Easy Computer Solutions. 5 reasons why the LG G8 is great for YouTube. Cinematic video tutorial, Filmic Pro, gimbal, editing, Easy Computer Solutions, taking a hard look at making something with your phone. And that's a conversation that makes me very excited because I think too many people are overbuying. You start climbing $700 and higher for a smartphone, and you have a ridiculously powerful pocket supercomputer. That stuff is, what we can do on ARM chipsets now is ridiculous. But what are you doing with your phone that you need that much power? And how future-proofed are you when you're probably only going to get one major operating system update and a handful of security patches, right? So increasingly, I'm trying to split an audience here. And Easy, I think, is doing something, not intentionally like, oh, he's copying me. No, but I think we're all starting to understand this division. There is absolutely a reason why someone should be looking at a $700 plus phone. But the usage on that should be more advanced, more aggressive to really get your money's worth. And not just, well, it's familiar and I feel good because it's got this label on the back, is not a good reason to start spending $1,000 on a smartphone. But if you were looking at laptop replacement, you were looking at mobile content creation, mobile podcasting, advanced software utilization, aggressive web servicing, there are reasons why all of that extra horsepower and all of that extra compute power, better cameras, that stuff there's a good reason why you step up into that. But if you're not doing those things, why not save some cash? Especially when the $400 to $500 price segment for smartphones is going to get real good again this year. Like, we're having another one of those years like we did when the Honor 8 came out and the Axon 7. It was the OnePlus 3. It was an amazing year of phones at $400. We're going to have another great year of phones at $400 to $500 that don't feel like compromises, feel like screaming fast, powerful mobile computers, and just don't have the crazy bells and whistles that someone with more advanced usage concerns might need. So the Easy's video, 5 reasons, LG G8, great video, check it out. And then also dig into that. Start doing more stuff with your phone, or look at how you might be able to save some cash. Abraham Artemis, am I the only one hearing that thumping noise? No, you're not the only one hearing that thumping noise. My neighbors are doing a whole bunch of construction, and it sucks, and I hate it. But yeah, everyone can hear it. Everyone can hear it. So that's Glowing Rectangles, reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. Please check it out. It's a growing community. Every week we're adding a few more subscribers. We're getting a few more upvotes. People are submitting a few more videos and articles. It doesn't just have to be video. If you want to submit written reviews or editorials or tutorials, anything goes. Just it's sort of tech, geek, sci-fi related. And hopefully it's a platform that can start to build some SEO for creators who need some help. Even on established channels, with content producers who we have every expectation that they can turn out good work, this market is getting more difficult to kind of share and populate and advertise and promote. And so if this can be a resource for people to find content and then use that as a way to share it to more popular subreddits, then I think we'll be doing a huge service for the people out there creating new stuff. We want more voices in this space. We don't want a top-heavy distribution of only popular conversations on YouTube, on the internet. So this is an opportunity. This is one resource, and I hope you'll participate. I hope you'll check it out. But in addition to that, participation is key. You find someone new, they make an amazing video, you like their style, you watch their video, and then you do nothing. That's increasingly someone who's probably not going to be around for very long. Participation is critical. So passive views are nice, but if you want those voices to continue producing, liking a video, subscribing to a channel, but more than anything else, sharing that content on your social channels is the biggest benefit, is the biggest help. Helping that person find a bigger audience means you get more cool stuff. So that little extra bit of effort is what separates a YouTube creator who disappears after 3 awesome videos from someone who starts to build a following, gain some traction, and is someone that you'll hear from for years afterwards. I know I want to see more cool stuff. So I like to share, and I like to create platforms that help people share. So I hope you'll check it out. From Elisna, real tech lives below the 200K sub mark. Tech went pop and lost its heart and brains. There are some very super popular content creators that I think are still maintaining a sense of consistency, sort of an internal honesty. But increasingly, like if you follow my channel and you actually have watched some of my reviews and some of my editorial videos, you'll probably be able to predict what I'm going to say about a new tech product, right? So the reason why I'm so excited about finding a new producer is it's a surprise. I don't know what they're going to say. Maybe they might hit me with something I'd never thought of, or a consideration like I'd never made. And that's so much more satisfying when you land one of those newer producers or channels. So instead of thumping, now there's going to be a buzzsaw going off right outside my window. This is going to be a real noisy podcast. But back to the topic. Those surprises are so much fun. And so it always makes me so sad, as every year I can count on a handful of channels that get me really excited, but then they fizzle out. An amazing first video, an amazing follow-up video. A week goes by, a third video kind of comes out. They disappear for a month. Hey guys, sorry I haven't been shooting more videos. I'm totally got some stuff coming up. Don't worry, but I wanted to talk about this one thing. Maybe they also do like a real crap low effort vlog, and then the channel's dead. This stuff is hard. And if the audience can't participate and the audience can't help promote, there's no reason to come back. Fat Produce, go for it, y'all. Glowing Rectangles is great. From Elisna, is anyone pushing Steve? How do you pronounce Steve's last name? Lichtfield? I actually don't know. I've only ever read his stuff. I don't think I've watched any of his videos. But I don't think we have a lot of rep on Steve on the channel. I think he actually shared a few of his own videos on Glowing Rectangles. But again, if the upvotes aren't there, if the participation isn't there, if people aren't sort of engaging with the content and with the community, it's not just, let me post my video, now people will make me popular. It's, you have to participate. You share a video, upvote a few other videos. Don't be stingy with the up red arrows. That helps everybody. Gary the Fireman, I always share on Google+. Oh, Google+, such a good idea, but of course Google can't stay focused on anything for more than a sort of a housefly's attention. All right. So I had to talk about this story. Andrew Wallace, my buddy at Fat Produce, probably the most passionate fan of HTC crypto phones. I just like, it's the thing he talks about the most. I'm totally being facetious. He makes tons of jokes on it. This is a story from Notebook Check, written by Sanjeev Sathya. HTC financials show signs of life with best results in 6 months. From the article, it's hard to imagine that just 7 or 8 years ago, HTC was still one of the leading Android smartphone makers on the planet. But the rise of Samsung and subsequently a myriad of Chinese competitors has seen HTC's fortunes take a massive tumble in recent years, to the point where many wondered whether it would manage to get any new devices out the door this year at all. Incredibly, the company has released 2 new mid-range handsets in the local market and even managed to see a spike of 94% in revenue for the month of June. While it's far too early to say that HTC is back just yet, it's a promising sign given just how dire the company's fortunes have been lately. It's in its best result for 6 months, the company posted unaudited consolidated revenue of $46.8 million US for the month of June. This was up from $24 million for the month of May, and suggests that its latest phones have gained some traction, at least locally. However, it's a million miles away from its 2011 heights, which saw it ranking in around $1 billion US a month. So the article goes on to sort of explain part of this is, surprisingly, the Exodus blockchain phone, which I am still not entirely sure what a blockchain phone is or does, actually sold out its production run. So there was enough blockchain interest for consumers to take a stab at a blockchain phone, so much so that they will be releasing a lower priced version of the Exodus called the Exodus 1S. Increasingly, a major chunk of HTC's smartphone talent went over to Google. So around the Pixel 2, Google basically snatched up a whole arm of the flagship production team over at HTC. With how HTC currently operates, mid-range strategy and something unique in the market is absolutely critical. I think it would be a terrible move for them to try and mass produce some kind of flagship return right now. But the HTC label may be going head-to-head against Nokia, where the most successful examples of recent HMD phones playing more in the mid-range price tier, Nokia 3 series coming here to the United States more aggressively unlocked. That could be a much healthier strategy, because I think so many areas are already in flagship phone fatigue, premium phone burnout, and having more options in this space from a premium manufacturer would do really well. If this can also be sort of combined, stapled together with the traction they have in the VR space, the Vive label, now would be the right time for HTC to double down on crossover with mobile, maybe some type of headset that can be powered from a phone, or a standalone headset, kind of like what Oculus did with the Quest. Now is the right time to start finding premium and mid-range solutions so that consumers have a greater variety of price points to buy in on, especially because HTC and the Vive are going to be going up directly against Valve at the high end. So where a Vive Pro is still, I think, one of the best options for VR, was it Valve with the Index? Is that what it's called? Their $1,000 VR headset is going to start cutting into premium market share because they've got the right label for gamers, right? So diversifying would do really well for HTC. From Frat Produce, wow, I'm surprised the Exodus sold its whole run. Huh. Also from Fat Produce, HTC has destroyed their U.S. carrier relationships for the most part. That's also why I think doubling down on the unlocked market, even for the United States, would be a good growth opportunity considering how little HTC is right now. If you want a Sony phone in the United States, B&H, buy it unlocked. Nokia phone, there are a handful out on MVNOs, but buy it unlocked, you're going to do fine. Zenfone, when Asus finally starts, are they selling the Zenfone yet? I need to look it up. I didn't think they were yet, but were they selling the Zenfone 6? Unlocked. There is no carrier relationship there. And up until recently, if you wanted a OnePlus, you bought it unlocked. So there's every opportunity to walk away from carriers. The Google Pixel 3a, top selling phone on Amazon, I think for the second month running, mostly because you can buy it unlocked. So this is the right time to ignore the traditional carrier relationship market. The numbers won't be as big, obviously, but if you want that sustained, healthy community growth, that's the way you're going to do it. If you're just another AT&T exclusive for 1 year and then they sever that relationship and they don't buy your next phone because it didn't sell very well because they didn't put any ad dollars to promote it, there was no advertising to get it in front of consumers' faces, and it was just on a little phone pedestal in the back corner with the burnt out light bulb, in the back of a carrier store, that's not a good or a healthy relationship. That doesn't actually sell phones. From Pakistan, I'm surprised they aren't doing a second. Anything blockchainy has weirdly wealthy and stubborn followers. Actually, I think so it's kind of like Pixel, right? My expectation would be they put out the Exodus, sold out its production run. Make a cheaper Exodus 1S, kind of like a Pixel 3a, and then maybe a little later in the year we get an Exodus 2. So you have a TikTok strategy. The main phone goes out towards the end of the year. A cheaper phone launches somewhere in the middle of the year, and then the follow-up comes back out again at the end of the year. Could work. That actually could work well. It's not about, it's too late. I know other people like, the Pixel 3a, it's too late. Except for the fact that it's selling like crazy. So I think Google did fine. Moving on. We have a combo of Apple stories here. I just think this is interesting, the way that manufacturer relationships go down. Hold on, let me get back into screen share here for a second. This is from Mac Rumors. Apple reimbursed Samsung $683 million after missing OLED display targets. So Apple originally said it would buy a certain number of the display panels from the South Korean company, but disappointing iPhone sales meant it was unable to live up to the agreement. The payment was made in the second quarter of this year. The figure, quoted by Reuters, came as Samsung on Friday forecast a plunge in its second quarter operating profits. But one-off gains, like the payment from Apple, helped it beat analyst expectations. This story, I think, is important for exactly what I was talking about before. We face a search popularity contest for content created online. Samsung scores really well in SEO. Apple scores really well in SEO. Commentary will be lopsided on things that are already search popular. Google rewards that. They promote it more in search, which creates that cyclical echo chamber where it's constantly verifying itself. But that's a faulty premise to work from. What we see in actuality are these premium priced products have plateaued and are actually on the decline in a number of markets. I'm not going to say in a lot of markets or in most markets, but in a lot of markets, if people are holding onto their phones for 3 years now, we're reaching that kind of peak premium smartphone. So there should still be reasons why people pay a premium for a smartphone, but increasingly, average consumer real peoples don't need $1,000 smartphones. Not when, oh, you should cover the basics. I only push the one shutter button on my camera, and that's the juicy colors. That's all I need. Then why do you need a $1,000 phone? You don't. So this is just hilarious. Apple promised Samsung a certain number of sales. They built an entire manufacturing facility to fulfill those orders that never materialized. I think it's been operating at half capacity or maybe 1/3 capacity during the run of the iPhone X and the iPhone XS. And the compensation for that, $683 million in iPhones that weren't sold, but were promised screens from Samsung. This is the right time to start spreading stuff out, folks. This is the right time to look at your family and friends and say, you know what? Do you need to spend $800 on a phone? I don't think you do. Just saying. This is a follow-up, too, because the other thing that's making me very sad, this is another rumor coming from 9to5Mac. DigiTimes 3D Touch removed from all iPhone 11 models. Apple adding BOE as second OLED screen supplier. They're not even getting LG OLEDs. I don't know who BOE is. Hold on, let's go through this article here. This is 9to5Mac written up by Benjamin Mayo. In a pair of DigiTimes reports, Apple is said to be removing 3D Touch from all iPhone 11 models and introducing a new OLED display manufacturer into its supply chain. DigiTimes reports are always a bit hit and miss, so take these reports with some skepticism. The death of 3D Touch has been long in the making. We have heard rumors from several analysts over the last year that Apple would no longer be producing pressure-sensitive screens in its devices. 3D Touch was also not present in the iPhone XR, although that could be partly excused because of the lower price point. You know, the iPhone XR's lower $850 price point. Sorry, that wasn't in the article. That was me yelling into my microphone. Hold on. I want to get to... now we are approaching an iPhone cycle where every model will likely not feature a pressure-sensitive display, and the unique 3D Touch experience will not be available. Apple has started laying the groundwork for this transition with UI changes in iOS 13. Hold on. I want to see, who is BOE? Oh, okay. So DigiTimes doesn't even say they are adding it. DigiTimes says Apple is considering adding BOE into the supply chain, motivated by recent Japanese restrictions on exports to Korea, which could put OLED production in jeopardy. However, it doesn't sound like a deal has been secured yet. So Samsung has been the sole supplier of OLED display panels for iPhone X, iPhone XS, and iPhone XS Max up to now. The OLED screens for MacBook Pro Touch Bar and Apple Watch are manufactured by LG, as they use a slightly different process and screen technology. That's POLED instead of AMOLED. Kiwi Mad Dog 420. Bo is a Chinese panel maker. Okay. So I would wonder if a BOE or Bo screen is going to score as well. I got into a fun little debate during the launch of the iPhone X with JJ from ASUS. Well, I mean, Apple is binning the highest possible premium quality displays, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't know. If they're going away from Samsung, are they going to be getting the top quality OLEDs? Because I'm not familiar with their products. I don't know which manufacturers are using Bo. From Fabieves, I've heard also Apple invested in Japan Display. That I did hear, that they were making other investments into other manufacturers, but if it was over the last year, they probably don't have yields up to the quality and consistency that would be necessary for an Apple product launch. But that's still, like, that would be great, having more competition. And Japanese competition, it's not like the Japanese haven't made some amazing displays. Fat Produce, I want LG to get more experience making OLED screens for more devices. Actually, it's from the V30 to now, I would say LG is now a top competitor. Looking at the V40 is one of the best OLEDs of its year and is only slightly falling behind AMOLED. I mean, to the point where I would have a hard time I think anyone who would be criticizing an LG OLED, you should mock them for pointing out scientifically measured differences between panel qualities, not this is what the human eye is actually experiencing when looking at the screen. The G8 is an interesting beast because of LG's software. Again, LG, not super great at the software, but the G series definitely takes a more consumery role than the V series. And so one of the dividers, and this is super subtle, but color management, saturation, and gamma get kind of wonky on the G8. You trust the display a little less if you're talking about premium professional grade color accuracy. But still, it's a very high quality panel. I just think it's being mismanaged, if that makes sense. LG's OLEDs have been real good. And again, it's sort of the perception of, I remember when I had my LG Flex. It was a 6-inch 720p display, and it was terrible. Well, they improved since then. They've improved since the V30, and I had a pretty good V30. But now where I used to say LG was like 2 generations behind Samsung, I'd say they're nipping at their heels. Again, what Samsung can do with the display is still top-notch. The OnePlus, I believe the OnePlus 7 is using an overdriven Samsung panel for its display, and it's rightfully, I think it is the best display on a phone, but LG isn't that far behind. Oh, Kiwi Mad Dog 420. Apparently, Bo makes the panels for the Huawei P30. Okay, that's actually pretty good. I mean, that's a premium phone, and it's been getting respectable reviews for having a decent quality display. All right, not bad. From Pat Ostin, the struggle between USB-C on the bigger model versus no headphone jack is real. Again, I'm going to have a little tease on some audio products that I'm covering. So my beautiful LG G8 has been getting a lot of action recently because I've got a ton of headphones to review. Gary the Fireman, LG was crucified for the Pixel 2 XL. Can you say color shift? Well, one, all panels color shift. Samsung color shifts red. They get super ruddy, but for some reason, that's acceptable, but color shift blue. Egads, clutch the pearls. How could you look at that screen if you're looking at your phone off axis? Because I always use my phone sideways. That's how I use my phone, not looking right at it. That's for plebes. I like to look sideways at my device, and oh no, instead of color shifting red like a note, it's color shifting blue. Unacceptable. Garbage. No, for the Pixel 2 was that era as we were getting out of the V30. The problem there, I don't think, was the actual quality of display. It was the quality assurance, the QA and consistency, where some people were getting really good screens and some people were getting garbage screens, uneven backlighting, stuff that you could actually see color shifting while looking directly at the display. Color shift really isn't a problem. All displays color shift to some degree, just some are better at handling off-axis viewing than others. Getting a Pixel 2 or an LG V30 was unfortunately a little bit of a roll of the die. It was a bit of a display lottery. But when you got a good one, it was good. Starting with the V40, LG displays are now near pro-grade capable. It's just whether or not they're being properly managed. Abraham Artemis, well, it's acceptable because it's Samsung. It's not acceptable when it's not a Samsung. I think Abraham gets it. I think he's cracked that nut. This is a real quick story. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I will ask you to go and check out this story over on XDA. Android Q Beta 5 won't let you use gesture navigation on third-party launchers. So we're still in beta territory for Android Q, and apparently if you install a third-party launcher, it interrupts the ability to control what system navigation you're using. It won't let you use all gestures, but you can use your 2 button, the little pill button, or the 3 button navigation. This is one of those things that I've been very disappointed in the comments on this story, both on Reddit and on XDA, because it's like sky is falling. Oh, this is I won't use Android. I'll keep my old phone. You're like, it's the beta. This is more an ongoing conversation. Apple is getting rid of 3D touch. Android is moving over to swiping and gestures. I think these are terrible moves. I really wish someone would build an operating system navigation from the ground up to take into account these really big, tall, skinny devices that are almost all screen. Because a bottom gesture swipe is a pain in the butt on a larger phone. Side swiping, and especially because, like I have to keep these phones in cases now because they're curved glass and super skinny, is not really very practical. And every time you make it a definable gesture, it is going to be less responsive than a button press. The acknowledgement of tapping a home button is a much simpler interaction than nailing the bottom edge and swiping up, especially because I also have to contend against this little rubber edge at the bottom of my smartphone case now. So if my thumb is off by a little bit, I haven't nailed the home gesture, I've just touched the screen. You can make gestures better, but they won't ever be as good as a dedicated tactile button response or button press. So I've been cranky about iPhones since losing Touch ID and the home button. But Apple, I think, had an amazing opportunity. If they were going to be getting rid of all the gimmicks of 3D touch, why not just make the whole screen your home button? You just push into the home button no matter where you are. A force press takes you home. A double press takes you to your multitasking. It doesn't matter where you touch the phone. You can perfectly navigate to exactly what you want to do by pressing the screen, the entire screen, kind of like what BlackBerry was trying to do with a clickable display back in the day. But instead of making it really difficult to type, you just make it very, very simple to go home, to go to multitasking. And maybe even from there, you can control other aspects of the UI, like force press in, swipe up to get to your control panel. Force press, swipe down to get to your notifications. You don't have that stupid split of, well, if I swipe from this little corner, I get controls, but if I swipe from this other corner, I get my notifications. That's so dumb. It's bad UI. People are familiar with it because they have no other opportunity to use an iPhone in a different way. That doesn't mean it's good design. And I think Android is completely missing an opportunity here. Google is completely missing an opportunity here to do something more practical. Swiping really isn't a good solution for where hardware has gone. Swiping made a lot more sense when phones were around 4 to 5 inches, right? You could way more easily, on all hands, not just on big hands, on all hands, navigate the entire width and height of a smaller phone. 6-inch screens, 6.5-inch screens, phones coming out with 7-inch displays. I hate this idea that I'm going to use my phone. So now I'm going to look at it with my eyes and give it all of my attention, and I'm going to hold it in one hand, and like a grandmother, I will swipe and move, and I'll use my other hand to control it. I have stuff to do. I want to use one hand and do things and then put the phone back in my pocket. I don't have to put down my bag and then open things up and touch the apps. And now I've used the apps and I can put the phone away. It's so much more disruptive than what we would have with better design. From Pakistan, for smaller devices with bezels like those Sony's, gestures are a great match. I agree. Oh, actually, Kiwi Mad Dog 420. Xiaomi's gesture navigation is pretty good. But again, as we move into Android Q and as Google starts to take the reins on navigation, increasingly more people will be using the Google flavor of this. And I kind of like the pill button. Again, I liked having just a home button and a back button better than all gestures. But so far, every implementation that's sort of iPhone adjacent has just made me cranky, has just pissed me off. And Goran, I think the solution is somewhere in HTC Edge Sense. Samsung gave up similar for the Note 10, so problems are not solved. But using naked phones are from some less destructive material is so refreshing. It would be nice if we could get back to phones that were more durable. And not glass-on-glass sandwiches, especially because they're going to slip out of your hands if you try and use them naked with gestures. from Pakistan, for the current tall generation, perfect for accidental drops when you shift the hand position. You got to dance the phone around a lot in your hand to get to everything on the screen. Man, it's nice for those extra phone sales or repair costs when phones are getting dropped and slipped and mangled. Another quick story here. I'm not going to read this whole thing. This is the actual press release. Community management is an ever-increasing problem for a lot of content creators. So whatever platform you're on, you often don't get great tools to kind of manage interactions. I'm a big fan of the quiet mute or ban on services like YouTube. So if you're harassing other people, if you're wildly off topic, if you're just insulting me and you're not really talking about what's in the video, I don't block you. I mute you. So your comments will just forever be invisible. But if you want to keep coming to my videos and yelling at me, I'm fine with the views, right? Great. I love having all of those imaginary internet points. So whenever there's a sort of a shadow ban opportunity on a social platform that we can use as content creators, I'm a big fan. Apparently, Instagram will be working on encouraging positive interactions. This is actually from the Instagram Info Center. This is the official press release. Our commitment to lead the fight against online bullying. Our mission is to connect you with the people and things you love, which only works if people feel comfortable expressing themselves on Instagram. We know bullying is a challenge many face, particularly young people. We are committed to leading the industry in the fight against online bullying, and we are rethinking the whole experience of Instagram to meet that commitment. So I'm going to move on from this. I'm going to have a link to it. Read through the press release, read through the article. Instagram is... I'm not a fan of Facebook, and I hate being tied into a Facebook property because I do use Instagram. But they are doing potentially two very interesting things. I desperately hope they will try the rollout of getting rid of likes on Instagram. I don't care how popular something is. I want good opportunities to search for new content, but I'm not going to judge content by whether or not it's got a bazillion likes. I would love to participate in that getting rid of the like counter on my photos and videos on Instagram. But this other move could be very exciting. Again, a better tool to help us manage interactions. Someone's harassing you, someone is constantly posting crap. You can go through and continuously manually delete comments, or you can block them, which is then also sort of like worn as a feather in the cap of someone who trolls. Haha, I pissed them off so much they blocked me. I know I've been blocked. I can go and create another troll account and continue trolling them and harassing them. A mute or a shadow ban, so much more effective because it doesn't alert someone who is being nefarious to how you have managed them on your platform of choice. But Abraham Artemis is absolutely correct. The thing that would most help fix Instagram would be getting back to a chronological view. I completely agree, Abraham. My Instagram consumption has plummeted since they started manipulating my feed. And as I'm scrolling through, I'm like, oh, hey, that's that was a photo from 3 days ago. That would have been really cool to see it when it happened, because I like that person and I'm following that person and I care about what's going on in their life. And they were right around the block from me. I could have reached out to them and said, hey, why don't I'll meet you for lunch. Your lunch looks delicious. Are you still in town? What's going on? No, that was 3 days ago. Awesome. Thanks, Instagram. Literally, thanks for nothing. One last story, and I think we've wrapped up all of the news. This podcast is going to run a little bit long too, because I do want to talk a little bit about AMD. I am so taken with this property. This is one of my all-time favorite gaming experiences of my entire life. And I'm anxious but curious to see that not only has Cuphead now sold over 4 million copies worldwide. We're talking about updates, expansions. Cuphead is flipping awesome. One of the best brutal boss fight platforming Twitch response games of all time. It's gonna get adapted into a Netflix cartoon, The Cuphead Show, also starring Mugman. Netflix and King Feature Syndicate, a part of Hearst Entertainment and Syndication, are bringing the massively popular indie platforming game Cuphead to the streaming platform. I said screaming platform. With the new animated series, The Cuphead Show. So hold on, let's see. CJ Kettler, executive producer, formerly on Carmen Sandiego, will produce for King Features, while Cuphead creators and brothers Chad and Jared Moldenhauer will serve as executive producers for the studio MDHR. The series will be produced by Netflix Animation and is executive produced by Emmy and Annie Award winner Dave Wasson of the Mickey Mouse shorts. Cosmo Sigurdsson will co-executive produce, and he was on Rocco's Modern Life Static Cling. I love seeing properties like this. Again, Cuphead was first introduced. I was blown away by the art direction. We saw it at an E3. A year later, I got to play it at an E3, and then it finally came out, and it's one of the few games I would just sit there and grind. I wouldn't even stream it because I just want to be on this game. I don't want to have to be distracted or talk to anybody because I'm playing this game. This is a great game. So again, I think it's interesting, those opportunities that we have to take an IP, and then see if it can translate. I'll be curious to see, like, can you translate the Cuphead story into a fun animated series? So we'll see. But that's such an exciting development for the two guys that started production on this game. And what a labor of love it was. It was so unlike anything that I had ever seen before. And then it was executed so beautifully. So I need to hold on. I'm going to pull up this deck. LFA reviews. Did I miss the audio kit, JC? We're getting there. I'm going to spend probably about 10 minutes talking about AMD, and then I will tease what's coming up for the rest of the channel for the rest of the week and next week, because this week is already Tuesday and I'm way behind. Hold on. Let me just do window capture. And are you going to show this? So my OBS has been... that's not going to work. Dang it. So unfortunately, this came in on a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm not entirely sure I can get this back into a browser. So one of the things that, again, I did a lot of talking yesterday. I was at Newegg Studios in the afternoon tackling a live stream with JJ from ASUS. And JJ is one of their community technical advisor dudes. Super, super knowledgeable. And we spent a long time. It was a 2.5 hour stream talking about the new kit from AMD. So AMD launched the 3rd generation Ryzen CPUs, the X570 chipset. That's, sort of the hardware that's going to be on a whole bunch of new motherboards. And of course, the 5700 XT, which is a graphics card. So I'm really talking about this here now, where if you want a critical deep dive from someone who is super knowledgeable about this content, we hosted this live stream. It's 2.5 hours of conversation. Again, the last half of it is talking about mostly ASUS products, but then again, it's sort of in conjunction with how this new chipset is going to be powering, new PC builds. So it's not like I'm going to do a deep dive here. But one of the things that kept ringing true, sort of validated a number of positions that I've held in previous reviews. Ryzen is a relatively new brand for AMD. Even when you have that big label, Intel, you have labels under the Intel umbrella. So you see the Intel logo on a computer. Not as many consumers are paying attention to the core, the Intel Core i series of processors. So AMD had a whole number of different badged product lines. I started building AMD with Athlon. I skipped AMD during the Phenom days. The in-house branding on things like Bulldozer. Those processors didn't really do it for me. But now, getting into Ryzen, we are arriving at the 3rd generation, the 3rd iteration of this from AMD. And so while we keep talking about AMD and Intel as sort of equal competitors, Intel is so much bigger a corporation than AMD, has hugely more resources than AMD. For the last couple of years, it's just sort of been expected that Intel would always be able to squash AMD. Let's say AMD did something really novel. Intel has the money to just throw ridiculous amounts of money at the problem and beat their price performance ratio by playing shenanigans in the marketplace. When Ryzen came out, it was a very interesting value proposition, but understandably, a lot of PC builders, a lot of consumers get nervous about a new product line, a new brand, a new offering. Ryzen 2 helped reinforce that. It showed some iteration, it showed some evolution, and now with Ryzen 3rd generation, there are a couple key metrics and a couple new technologies that Intel actually doesn't have a response for. It's not a foregone conclusion. This is good competition, but we're now in a situation where Intel can't just squash AMD in this processor generation. If we're talking about thermals, if we're talking about power management, now we have a good fight. And we haven't had that for a while. So in a 2.5 hour live stream, if you want the and I mean, like, we go deep. We're talking VRMs, we're talking power phases, we're talking memory mesh. We get into the chiplet design on the AMD CPU, the new die that they're casting for these processors. We start getting into PCIe 4 and what that means for I/O, how many USB ports you get, SATA ports you get, graphics cards, the throughput that you could expect from next generation storage devices. And how that's loosely going to play into the graphics card fight. We did not spend a lot of time on Navi, the 5700 XT, the new graphics cards coming out from AMD. But again, AMD has never been this competitive against Intel in the CPU space, and AMD has never been this competitive in the GPU space. So NVIDIA just launched a whole new series of branded RTX super cards, and they dropped prices on some of their older cards. And AMD immediately responded with price competitive parts. It's not about, well, I would totally buy AMD if it performed like a top of the line NVIDIA and I could buy it for half the price. Every time you see a geek post a comment like that on the internet, I want you to mentally imagine just punching that person in the face as viscerally as you can. Not to actually act on that impulse, but just exercise that feeling, because it's the most useless commentary in tech. I would totally buy it if it costs less. Really, that's such a shocking and amazingly adept analysis for the tech scene. You would buy something powerful if it cost less than another powerful thing? Whoa! Who comes up with this tech commentary? You're brilliant! Why don't all manufacturers just listen to you? You're a genius! What we need is actual price performance competition. Not, I could save a little money, but I had to make some compromises over here. That's not good for AMD, and it's kind of been where their GPUs have been. I want to support them. I have a hard time when my work depends on price performance. And I say this because I'm rocking a Threadripper in my build right now, and it's not a cheap piece of electronics. But this is a continuing and evolving story. The reviews are out. So we had a whole bunch of tech outlets that had these products under embargo. But what's exciting here is, and it's not always the story that's being told. This new processor, these new GPUs, this new chipset for the motherboards is all super new. This isn't just a die shrink. It's not that the manufacturing just got a little bit better, but it's the same chip that we had for the second gen Ryzen. There are substantial architectural changes that make this early commentary a little less reliable. Not that I think any of the tech outlets have done a bad job of covering these, but we still don't even we can't even fully define what the benchmark rules should be between memory overclocking and CPU refresh rates and power price performance thermals. We're testing Intel in this way, but we had to test AMD in this way, so these benchmarks aren't directly comparable against parts that are similarly priced. And we've only just started getting our footing on this new AMD hardware, where after a couple updates, bug fixes, patches, operating system updates so that Windows knows what to do with these processors and new chipsets, we have a lot of extra headroom on these parts that the evolution of a purchase now, you will probably eke out better performance over time with Ryzen 3rd Gen and Zen 2 in a way where AMD really hasn't been competitive in the past. So that's what's making me the most excited. It's not like I'm supporting AMD and making some sacrifices because I personally want better competition. I feel pretty good saying holistic system to holistic system, building an AMD machine right now is price competitive, performance competitive, and there are a few perks that you can't get by going Intel right now. You can future-proof in some really creative ways with an AMD build right now. That makes me really excited. Like, more than anything else, like, I just don't want one company running roughshod over the entire industry. And because PC building is now such an enthusiast space, at the same time I'm talking about PC building, I'm also making videos about how you can use your phone and leave your laptop at home, right? So I'm a little all over the place here with my commentary. But because PC building is such sort of an enthusiast community, and it's about to be attacked by game streaming services, distributed networked server-side solutions. If Stadia or XPlay become popular, where you can stream a game, what's to stop you from Adobe saying, well, you don't need to run a crazy powerful video rendering machine. We'll buy up a whole bunch of server space and you can render your videos on our servers. So you just edit all this and then you go to sleep and you upload the project and then we'll spit out a render way faster than you can render on your own home PC. The disruption for server-side services is going to be big over the next 5 to 10 years. It's not going to be overnight, obviously. But that means the PC building community, this enthusiast space, has about a good 10-year window of having these types of solutions and building crazy powerful systems. And that's an exciting place to be. Over the next couple of years, we're going to have a lot of fun before the market probably walks away from the things that we love and the things that we care about. Got a lot of comments on these here. Kiwi Mad Dog 420. Ryzen 3000 is boss AF. LFA, I'm actually working on a secondary gaming streaming build featuring a Ryzen 2600. That's a great chip to be building a pretty high-end mid-ranger PC. That's also what's exciting, is that these are technically mid-ranger parts. Everything that AMD put out, this Ryzen 3000, I think the most expensive one that's currently available is $500 for the CPU. That's not an insignificant amount of money, but that's not HEDT space. That's not high-end. You can spend $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 on a processor if you go heavy. But what they're doing in this mid-range space is right knocking on the door of systems that last year would have cost substantially more. Abraham Artemis, you could say AMD has Ryzen itself. I made that joke too. Kiwi Mad Dog 420. So tempted to swap out my 2600 to one of those shiny new chips. Also backwards compatibility. Nice. If you're rocking an X470 board, you can use one of these new Ryzen processors. LFA, going to be my first AMD build since the 700 megahertz days. So I had a Pentium 2 under a gigahertz, and then I went to an AMD T-Bird 1.2 gigahertz. Blew my mind. Who could think at that speed? What would I do with all of that power of an early 2000s AMD T-Bird? Abraham Artemis, it's like Intel became the old AMD before Ryzen happened. Again, it's not that I think Intel was caught with their pants down. They're a huge organization, and the logistics on CPU design are super intense, but Intel has also had a few more issues with things like security exploits because of their processor design. So they've been stuck at a fabrication size, I think in small part, because they're having to radically redesign parts of their pipeline to make their processors a bit more secure, especially their caches. There's another series of like zombie exploits on Intel chipsets. Highly unlikely, consumers will have to face the direct fallout of someone gaining access to their computer and getting access to sort of machine level data storage. But still a concern, and definitely one where corporations might be employing numerous Intel-powered machines, because Intel is the dominant force in this industry. Because of that processor design, I think AMD was a little ahead of the curve in fixing some of those security exploits while making Ryzen. So they were able to future-proof against those security concerns while Intel was still playing catch-up. And I think that's why we're seeing Intel just a step behind AMD, but not being able to just immediately launch a part that is competitive with what AMD is doing in this price performance sector. It still doesn't mean that like if you were to go and get like an Intel 9900K, like that's still a beast of a machine that you would be building. It's not to say you shouldn't go Team Blue. It's just the timing worked out in AMD's favor, and we've got good competition right now. From Fat Produce, I've been curious if Ryzen setups are better for gaming and streaming running at the same time. So what's exciting? There is the Ryzen parts. Hold on, I can't actually reference this slide while I talk about what's going on. So we are in the middle of the core wars. You would buy a computer, you'd have a CPU, and there would be one thing that would crunch zeros and ones. Then Athlon launched dual core. There were two things. Intel launched hyper-threading. You would have two things, and then they could work on and off. So it was like having four things that would crunch the zeros and ones. For $200, you can get a Ryzen 3600, which has 6 cores and 12 threads. So it's multi-threaded performance for $200. Again, from a consumer perspective, a $200 CPU probably paired up with around a $200 motherboard if you want it to be generation consistent. That is not an insignificant amount of money, but that's not a heavy startup cost for a machine which a couple years ago would have been a high-end workstation. Price performance, single core performance, catching up to Intel, multi-threaded performance in a number of applications, besting what Intel can do at around that $200 price tier. And available today is the 3900X, which has 12 cores and 24 threads. They're going to have a 3950, which has, I think it's 16 cores and 32 threads. And that takes you right into Threadripper territory. The lowest end Threadripper, 16 cores. The highest end Ryzen, 16 cores. That is approaching high-end workstation grade computing. So AMD, and I think Intel has been doing an okay job of also keeping up with this idea that PC building, consumers don't really fully realize how multitasking aggressive modern usage has become. We take it for granted that a reasonably spec'd PC can play a game, capture that game footage in real time, capture camera footage of me playing that game in real time, route audio from the game, route audio from my microphone or from my camera, use another service to upload that gameplay and footage to something like Twitch, and manage real-time communications on a service like Discord or Steam or whatever you use for in-game or live chat. And that all of these things should be able to simultaneously happen smoothly while broadcasting 1080p footage at 60 frames per second. 1080p footage at 60 frames per second 5 years ago was almost impossible for an okay PC to do well. Now is what we take for granted on a phone, let alone 4K video streams or 4K video production and uploads. Real-time, high-quality gaming content not only being played, but captured. And we're going to be incorporating a whole bunch of new technologies, things like ray tracing and advanced lighting effects. If you have an RTX card, you have to go pick up Quake 2 RTX. Go to Steam. It's totally free for, I think, the shareware version. You remember when Doom and Quake used to be shareware? You could play like the first 3 mission maps and then like you'd have to pay for the whole game. Quake 2 RTX. Old school Quake graphics. There is no graphics update, but they have incorporated the advanced lighting and particle effects of RTX. So you're getting old school Quake gaming, but with crazy beautiful lighting. So I go into a dark room and everything's totally blacked out and like I can't see anything. Old Quake, I would have been able to see something, but I fire my gun and the muzzle flash actually illuminates the hallway, and you see it as this laser blast like travels down the whole hallway. And again, I broke-hawed that one. Travels down the whole hallway. And you just see it. And it's gorgeous, but then the graphics are garbage because we've evolved since Quake 2 and the blocky, the blocky character designs and animations. It is hilarious and it is so much fun. The Freaky. I have an RTX 2080 Ti on a Threadripper on a Samsung N70 Pro SSDs and 64 gigabytes of RAM, trying to play Quake 2 RTX. And my rig probably still needs more optimization for really eking out all of the amazing performance that I have on tap. I'm still in the process of manipulating and rebuilding my PC. Quake 2 RTX with the RTX lighting effects on, playing that game at 4K with RTX on, I was getting around 25 frames per second on an RTX 2080 Ti and a Threadripper. So I definitely need to tweak a few things in my system settings. I had to drop it down to 2560 by 1440, and then I was getting 60 to 70 frames per second with RTX on. It's just hilarious how much more demanding gaming will get for not core graphics improvements. It's not like the character models are going to be getting more detailed or the environments are going to be getting more lush. It's going to be for things like lighting. Like lighting alone is going to cut our frame rates by 2/3 on the current gen of hardware, high-end hardware that we have today. So, sorry, short story, really long. That's the secondary title for this week's podcast. I am so stinking excited about where we are with AMD, with Ryzen, and even the announcement on the 5700 XT. I'm not going to be picking up an AMD card this gen, probably not. I'd be happy to review one, but in my personal rig, I'll probably be sticking with my crazy overpriced RTX card. But it's just really refreshing to have competition like this in this space again. So if you're into PC building, or if you're just into tech in general, you're shopping a computer, maybe you do want to buy some kind of desktop or something, that AMD logo is going to be a pretty heavy hitter this year and next year as these parts make it to the mainstream. It's just, that makes me so happy. I love it so much. So that's my sort of ramblings on the topic. And a lot of people in the chat seem to be excited too, because even if you're not a big fan of AMD, this is going to be good things for you on the Intel side. Better competition will always mean better prices for your next build or for your next PC. But if you really want to jam and you really want to dig in deep, hanging out with JJ from ASUS, 2 hours of conversation. If you haven't been listening to me enough so far, this would be the right place for you to check out what's going on with AMD, with X570, Ryzen 3rd Gen, and with Asus's new slate of motherboards. So I think that's gonna do it, man. Folks, I think it's time to wrap this puppy up. Oh, and then also I have a poll on Twitch. For this episode, will your next PC be AMD? And there are 4 options: CPU, GPU, CPU and GPU, or NERP. You're not going to have any AMD in your next stream. So, I didn't even realize this. From Fabbies. Juan, today you are a supporter for Team Red. Your t-shirt and hat. I didn't even pick this out. This was not intentional. I am not this podcast not sponsored by AMD, not brought to you by AMD. But it is being streamed on an AMD Threadripper. But yeah, all of the red shirt. So I was thinking I was going to make the joke I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt, but if I were on Star Trek, I'd be the first one to get gunned down. Okay, coming up on the channel, we're going to be continuing the cheap phone challenge, so make sure you go and watch our shared videos, my channel and TK Bay. I'll have links for those videos on the show notes for this podcast. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then also, I just love playing with lesser expensive devices because I don't think people understand how much bang for buck you can really get if you try and push your budget a little bit lower. I'm going to be doing some follow-ups. Probably not out aggressively this week, but into next week, I got to go back and I've got to look at some of these phones that maybe haven't been living up to their promises. Nokia 9. No news is bad news when it comes to smartphone support, software updates, some of the fixes we were hoping to see for camera performance. I need to get back to spending a little bit more time with the G8. I've been using my LG a ton, but I actually haven't finished the review track on using that phone long term. So that's going to be a critical part of the conversation. I have a lot to say. We just got another update for the OnePlus 7 Pro. And some pretty important things just got addressed in software if you're on the 0.9 firmware for the OnePlus 7 Pro. So that's going to be coming out too. And then I am going to be getting back to, I finished the script for my predatory microtransactions video. I'm going to need help sharing this when it goes live, but I'm trying to make videos for parents. We're all tech savvy, but sometimes some of these topics can get away from us. Things like hearing health, right? Making some smart choices for your kids to help them learn better habits. So for video gaming, things like predatory microtransactions, loot box mechanics, gambling mechanics. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the scientific study that was just published saying how kids who play these types of games are starting to exhibit more problematic behavior with gambling. This is the right time to double down on those conversations and to make sure our family and our friends are armed with the best possible information for teaching their children and also just for themselves too. And lastly, I got a care package from my friends over at Me Audio. Hold on, I got to take a sip of water. I was going to try and make it, but I couldn't. Oh, man. So Me Audio, they've got consumer products, but I knew them first for making great, low-cost, professional in-ear monitors. My go-to monitors are still their cheaper drivers. I just have the cable knotted up here on my computer desk. But whenever you see me in a live stream or in an interview, and then when I'm at home and I'm mixing audio or I'm recording stuff for my own channel, they're a little schmutzy because I use them a lot. But these are my M6 Pro, and they were kind enough to sit down with me and do an ear scan, using this really fancy new optical scanner so I could have custom molded ear tips that fit perfectly. These are the most comfortable earbuds I've ever owned because they're biologically designed for me. So these are the M6 Pro, and I think the actual drivers are only like $50, but they've completely revamped their entire in-ear monitor product line. And so they sent over a ridiculous collection of earbuds. Huzzah! So the M6 are replaced by the MX1, which is a single driver in-ear monitor. If you'd like to step up to something a little bassier, they have the MX2, surprise, dual drivers. And do you see a trend starting with the number after the MX? Dual driver in-ear monitor. However, if you'd like something that plays a little bit more vibrant in the mids, which is my bread and butter, I live in the mids, especially from being a voiceover director and a voiceover session engineer. We have the MX3 triple drivers, MX3 triple drivers. And then let's say you just want something that's aggressively covering the entire EQ spectrum, sharp, bright crystal highs, some good rumble in the bass, the mids aren't stomped on. They now offer the MX4 quad drivers. So I am like a pig in filth. This is the happiest way for me to be spending a ton of time. And again, hilarious, I'm going to be cranking my LG G8 to cover all of this stuff. Complete redesign of their entire product lineup, interchangeable parts. So let's say you've got cables and you're using an MX1 and then you want to upgrade to something like an MX3, like you want to switch over. All of the accessories, cables, and connectors are completely replaceable. They make these little inserts that you can brand them, like you can put a little vanity panel. Those pop off your old earbuds. They snap right onto the new ones. I think this is a huge step for the company because if you had their lower end, or they're less expensive, I shouldn't say lower end, they're for different situations. If you had their less expensive earbuds and you moved up to their more expensive earbuds, not all of that stuff was compatible, cross-compatible. The ear tips were different. The cable arms were a little bit different. The driver casing was a little bit different. Now, from $50 to $200, everything is completely consistent in design, manufacturing, cabling support, and accessories. So that's a big deal. They've created a proper system, and that makes me really happy. But wait, there's more. Let's say you're not into cabled pro style audio and you just want to play with something wireless. You want to go Bluetooth. And let's also say part of the reason is like your phone doesn't even have a headphone jack, but you want something a little sportier. You've been looking at these true wireless earbuds. They also sent over their new X10 true wireless Bluetooth earbuds. So I've got 5 pairs of headphones to review. And this is a brand I really enjoy. They're a boutique-y little pro audio brand. They started making in-ear monitors for live performance. So like, let's say you were part of like a choir or you were singing gospel or you were a stage musician. They got their start. So they have a ton of DNA in blocking sound. They're really good at creating rejection-heavy products that block noise around you because they had the expectation that you would use their products on stage. That's like the most critical place to protect an artist's hearing. And a lot of that DNA makes its way into their consumer products too. So I got a lot to cover. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to cover it all. I don't think I'm going to do individual videos for every single product iteration because I also want to talk about their solutions for molding. Again, this is like the most biologically healthy way to plug something into your skull to listen to music and listen to audio. I might try and see if we can find a good fit for my wife because she has huge problems finding in-ear earbuds. Maybe Me Audio has a solution for her. And then also something a little bit more on the consumer side where if we take a pro audio company, what can they do in the consumer space? And they've got true wireless earbuds that are going to retail for about $80. So is this going to be a good competitor to the AirPods? Or is this going to be a little bit more like Creative's solution in this space? Are they going to give the One More true wireless earbuds a run for their money? I love talking audio. I love listening to all of the differences and the little nuances and the changes. So I'm silly excited because this is exactly the kind of run of headphones that I wanted to play with. I'm seeing the eyeballs. LFA reviews. Blink, blink, blink. Gary the Fireman, take my money. So, folks, that's going to do it for us. There is so much coming out on the channel. Lots of content that I need to finish up. I'm in the process of getting some stuff done, but I had a bunch of videos go out. The One Mores, the Creatives, the new Hira reviews, all of those went live. Getting back to some smartphone coverage. And this Thursday, I'll be back at Newegg covering more of the AMD launch. I'm going to be back with Trisha, so we're going to have a fun conversation about that. And then we did a bunch of viewer video polls on the Newegg YouTube channel too. So you can vote in those polls, drop some comments, and that's the stuff that we're going to be talking about in our live stream on Thursday. This is good. I like being busy in the summer because I've had some summers where it felt like I went on vacation, and that's really bad for me being able to pay rent. Sad trombone. So thank you so much for watching. This was a great live chat. Thank you, Paco Street, LFA, Gary the Fireman, Fabies, Abraham, Andrew Wallace, my buddy Andrew. Just so many great conversations. Oh, Va2581 on the Periscope also jumped in with a comment there too. Obviously, these conversations continue past just the live broadcast. If you're inclined to be sharing podcasts or reviewing podcasts, please also give the audio version of this feed a little love. Share that, especially if you don't want to be sort of watching a video for over 2 hours while I talk a lot. But of course, outside of the podcast, you can always reach out to me on the YouTubes, on the Twitches, on the Twitters and the Instagrams. I'm not really paying attention to Facebook messages these days, but I feel I'm appropriately accessible across the rest of the internet. Even if you just want to hit SomeGadgetGuy.com and shoot me an email, we can go old school if you want to go old school. So thanks so much for watching, sharing, subscribing, participating. Support your local online content creator. Show them some love. Show them some action, not just a passive view. And Gary the Fireman, shout out to the U.S. National Women's Team. World Cup, USA, USA. So very exciting. We got to watch the final live. Very exciting watching it with my daughter. Awesome. 3.5-year-old starting to get it. Oh, they're playing really good. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. So, you know where you can catch me next week. The podcast will be back on Friday, where I announce the winner of the Huawei MediaPad contest, giving away a tablet. You still have time to try and win a tablet. And, of course, all of the same tech news, commentary, and shenanigans that you can expect on the Monday morning Tech Chat show, when it'll be back on a Monday. Thanks so much, everybody. I want you to have an awesome rest of your week. I want you to do awesome. I want you to be awesome. And I will catch you next time on the SGGQA podcast. I love y'all. Take care. I'll catch you later.